All right, good morning and welcome everybody. My name is Dylan Tansey. I'm the Executive Director of the Sunspec Alliance. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar on standardizing solar finance with Jan Rippingale, CEO and founder of Banyan, and also CEO of the Orange Button Alliance. It's a great topic for today, so really happy for you all to join us. I'm going to leave a lot of the detail, all the details to Jan, but just to tee things up a little bit, we're talking about Orange Button and application level data standards. That is really exciting. The Orange Button initiative was initially developed under a U.S. Department of Energy finance project, but now this initiative is going global with the origination of the Orange Button Alliance, a separate 501c3 nonprofit charity that was spun up in order to support the development of different use cases and applications of the standard. And Jan is both a board member of the Sunspec Alliance and, like I said, CEO of the Orange Button Alliance. So I'll let Jan get all into it. Let's just go to the IP and admonition. So, like all Sunspec meetings are conducted in accordance with the Sunspec antitrust policy and intellectual property provisions defined in the Sunspec member agreement. This agreement can be found at the following address. Sunspec strictly prohibits market participants and their employees who take part in these activities from using their participation as a forum for engaging in practices or communications that violate antitrust laws. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. Please contact Sunspec management if you have any questions. And a couple quick housekeeping items before I pass it off to Jan. This meeting is being held on Google Meet, so you do have the ability to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. We do ask that you keep your camera off and yourself on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. In addition, there will be time for questions, so please do enter your questions in the chat. But like I said, keep the camera and mic off for the main duration of the content. Additionally, the recording will be published and distributed to you within a day or two, as well as the deck. And there's an appendix at the end with a lot of rich detail for you to refer to afterward. So with that,
thank you so.
Jan Rippingale, thanks so much for joining us. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Dylan. I am glad to be here. This is my favorite webinar of the year to report out on what we've been doing with the Orange Button Working Group and how we're planning on building even more momentum than we have gotten so far together. So the future of clean energy runs on data. This is our mantra. So today's journey, we've all been about how are we going to go from this problem and handle it in partnership, which is why we have the 501c3. The challenge is that the soft costs are eating up 50% of every solar dollar spent. And in order to deploy more solar faster and help the climate transition and just to make life more fun for all of us, we need to see what we can do to change that. And we have been working on it for nearly a decade, and we're getting some traction. The infrastructure behind the solution for this involves common terms, like using the same words to mean the same things, common data sets, like the AHJ registry and the product registry, and common tools like Solar App and Sotel and many other tools that we've got available. We're going to go into that in detail, but all of this is meant to give you and to give the industry, to give us an ability to capitalize on our common data. So we can have something like Zillow for solar. And we are going to work for this so we have common valuation of our assets and quick deployment. So we have made steps that are already working. The steps that we have made are already saving millions of dollars, and we've got a roadmap to do even more. We're going to talk about your membership in the Orange Button Alliance and the help that we would like you to engage and contribute to shape the future that we need. And then we'll have questions. So here's the data challenge in US Resi. And I brought this out specifically because it is stark. So solar costs 7 times more in the United States than in Australia. That is amazing. So a US system that's 28K, which is close to average here, is $4,000 in the US and $10,000 in Germany. So what is the difference? And it's not the modules, it's not the equipment, it's the paperwork. So the soft costs are the operational challenge of this fragmented data that we're needing to solve for. Across the segments, we have the same challenge. So an important thing is it takes over 27 days. It's actually gone down a lot to get permitting delays through a manual AHJ process. In commercial, we've got very complex site data requirements and inconsistent performance reporting. And so due diligence to get financing is very complicated and slows everything down for financing and also for selling the asset later. Utility scale, this shows up in these huge interconnection queues that we've been hearing about and talking about and chipping away at to get going. So how much time and money does this actually cost us? So the interconnection bottleneck, as you know, is pretty much the bottleneck that we have to deploying more solar faster. And every day that we get delays with this interconnection bottleneck, recently Pine Gate's bankruptcy, for instance, was dramatically affected by not being able to get through this bottleneck. And the carrying costs of any delays that happen as you have these projects that are sitting idle and unable to move forward are substantial. So we also need the utilities coming in and helping us with this data exchange. The product data is the next area that we're going to look to tame. And we have multiple 200 plus manufacturers. They've all got their own specification data in their own languages right now. And we are going to work to get them synchronized so that we can look and do apple to apple comparisons while still preserving their unique capabilities. So this is going to be the next piece that we take on, and then the asset valuation and the opacity for that. Like, we can't tell how much utility scale projects are worth based on what they're generating yet. And this Zillow for solar is literally how we want to do that. We want to build up the data pieces that we need, and knowing which products we're working on is a key element of that buildup. But we wanted to be able to do that so that we can exchange solar assets in a way similar to how Zillow does. You have approximate comparisons, do inspections, in 30 days, you've got a new system. So we've got these three problems, and they all share a common root cause, which is that our data is fragmented. So what is the solution? What if, please imagine for a second, the solar data we needed just worked? What if we worked on one standard with one language, one term across all of the relevant jurisdictions, which is 20,000 in the US alone, all our manufacturers? We have 10,000 plus solar companies who are all speaking the same language. The efficiencies we would be able to manifest collectively, doing more good faster and making more money along the way, is exactly the solution that we're looking for and we're building up for, one step at a time. So this was the fundamental vision that started the Orange Button Initiative from the Department of Energy, and Sunspec was the initial recipient to doing that. This is still the core working group, has these members, and then we've got key contributors going through what we're working on. We've got taxonomy definitions where we're really defining the terms. And I'm going to go into what exactly that is and why that matters, particularly with AI, because this AI just supercharges all of the benefits that we are going to get from this common terminology. And then the reference data sets. The reference data sets are the areas where we're getting the most traction and the most visibility, because data is candy. Everybody loves getting more data faster and more accurately. So this initiative and the success we've had so far started the Orange Button Alliance. We are a 501c3, formally set up in a nonprofit structure now, and our mission is to accelerate clean energy deployment through data standardization. So the vision originally was a Zillow for solar, and these are the kinds of changes that I think that we can make. You're going to have a valuation assessment. Like right now, there isn't actually a good way to do this. It is all custom and bespoke every single time. But with Orange Button, you could just go on a website, look up the site, and see it with its when the vision's fully executed. The capacity adjustments for hosting factors and other things, like it takes days and weeks to get this information and pull it together right now, and you could do that probably in less than an hour with some tweaking of the parameters and times of day and different ways that you might want to adjust those assumptions. O&M data right now is reported manually, and we would like this to be reported monthly. It would be a typical cadence, but quarterly would be the other cadence. And the reason that we think that we can do this is because we are using the same infrastructure that the SEC uses to get quarterly accounting from every publicly traded company in the world, up every quarter. So we've got that same advantage in our underlying technology so that we can get this level of automation and performance-based data. So instead of going through full due diligence, which takes months and months, it might take something more like 30 days as you do your inspections, much more like a house. The market for this is billions of dollars annually. So this is worth reallocating these resources to deploy more solar, deploy it faster, and to do it better altogether, which is why it's worth this long, what does Tom Tansey keep saying? It's the overnight success that was 10 years in the making. So this has been a journey for all of us, but there are billions of dollars at stake and will become available through these optimizations. So as always, we have the two choices that we can keep paying this fragmentation tax and suffering, or we can support the infrastructure that's already working, and it's got this compounding returns. So clearly I've made my choice, but I invite you all to think about this and see where you'd like to be. So how do we really do this, right? And we're breaking it down into these three components. And the common terms are really found in the Orange Button editor, which I'm going to show you in detail as we go through. The terms and the enumerations, the values that go behind these terms are the magic that create the semantics to give us all of those optimizations we're going to get from AI. The AHJ registry, we've talked about for years now, and it's very successful. It is rolled out as an underpinning for Solar App and how they're succeeding in the US, and which dramatically improved how many permits are being issued electronically and how quickly that can get done. The product registry has a similar, is started. We've got the MVP, and we've got a similar journey that we're building it out now with key enhancements like data for domestic content rules. So it's very exciting. And in the standardized chart of accounts, this is the registry that we're building that's going to tie solar accounts for a solar site like Zillow into, and it connects with links to what's in GAP and what's in XBRL so that we can have that transparency to get these valuations. So these are the common data sets that we're focused on next, that's supported by and used by each of these tools. And the tool list just keeps growing. So who benefits from this structure? And essentially it's everybody. Everybody benefits in the entire ecosystem by having this clarity. These are the core elements of the actual deliverables along the way in order that we are working for so that you guys can see this progress. Let me know if you have any questions about any of these. I love talking about it in detail. So that is the vision for what we've got. And then what have we actually done in 2025? What's different from last year? So first, we actually launched the operations and maintenance data models. And we're going to show you how those data models are used in production with Sotel and their clients, and all the innovations that needed to come out with getting that out into the market. It's very exciting. Next, we're going to talk about the time series data framework that enables us to do primarily the business reporting that we actually need to do on a consistent basis, which is foundational for an energy asset to have valuation. And the language support as we moved internationally. Rolling this out is in an Israeli-based company, and then we rolled it out throughout Europe and Spain, Germany, and we needed the languages to work accordingly. Next, I want to show you the product registry MVP and the most recent changes that we have done. One is domestic content wasn't a thing prior to 2025, and we have a simple and effective way of tracking that so that the manufacturers can clearly attest to their domestic content and FIAC rules so that we can have clear financing as we're moving forward and need to become compliant with all of these things starting in 2026, and then July in 2026, we've got another one. January and July are the big dates there. Qualifying lists. A qualifying list is what, you may ask? And the qualifying list integration that we have done works with, like, the CEC is a qualifying list, the California Energy Commission's list. And there are many more qualifying lists. Pennsylvania Power and Light has their own qualifying list. SRC in Arizona has got their own qualifying list so that they can clearly indicate which products are on their qualifying list to accelerate selling those products, but also accelerate the deployment and designs that are needed in those areas. And last but not least, the recycling and circularity data that we're collecting about the products is going to be crucial as we want to have recycling plans in the United States as well, but we're going to be rolling this out throughout Europe with the digital passports in the EU. So they're going to be the first users because they're requiring it, and the support for this is going to benefit everyone across the country as we look to make sure that the United States, for instance, can have the can reutilize these mineral and other resources effectively. So this is very exciting. And the residential solar ecosystem growth in 2025. So this has been accumulating from the AHJ registry growth and then the work that we've done with Solar App. It is now on 325 AHJs across 17 states. We have actually issued 126,000 permits. And the first statewide deployment for every AHJ is Colorado's, and they've got 200 DORA jurisdictions. So it has been deployed across the entire state of Colorado, which is becoming another energy leader in the US. And the permits get issued in less than a day, which is a huge game-changing shift in how we're able to deliver. So these are the pieces that have come to fruition and are continuing to grow in 2025 that we're really proud of. I would love to go deep dive on any of these if you're interested in the questions at the end. So a quick thing about the OM expansion I wanted to show you is that we've got a video on how to use the API, the Orange Button compliant API. So take a look at this link and check out this video. I'm just going to show you a quick 2 seconds version of it. It's in Swagger, in Open API, so that everyone can look at it and see what they're doing. I'm going to move past authorization and start to show you how some of the orange button, where we've got the value-based logic, is used in the API calls and the responses. So you can see the value, unit, decimal, start, and end time, these primitives. This is the thing that makes the SEC able to process all the data across all the companies in the same way. And that's what we're applying to our energy information infrastructure. So the video link is in there. I want you all to check out how it's actually being used in production in the wild. So super excited and proud about that. We got a lot of help to put this together with the SolarGrade platform in particular. So that was really great. And then we have these awesome standards aligned enumerations. And I'm just going to take a minute and show you what that actually means. So here's an example of one of our O&M things is failure cause. And without orange button, you get things like inverter problem and this, and you don't know what they mean. They could be interchangeable. But instead, if you align the failure cause to the standards, you would get something like this and know exactly and precisely what it is that you need to look at. So let's just take a minute and look at, this is in OM issue, which is our object. And this is the editor that we have to look at everything that we've got. So you can see the OM issue here. And one of the pieces in here is the failure records. And because you can have an ON issue that has more than one failure. And if you look at failure cause, just as an example, you can view your enumerations and you'll see that we've aligned the failure causes to the ISO standards so that the entire industry can look and see where the problem was and start addressing the problem at the source as you're going through, which is why this ISO standard was set up this way to begin with. So this is an example of us showing the industry as a whole how to apply these ISO standards in their own business to begin to describe what's going on and then be able to improve their business processes, count where the problems are happening and how they're getting fixed. Hopefully earlier in the process so that they're all less expensive to fix, which is the ISO way. And you'll notice that we have these kinds of enumerations on many of the different pieces so that we can guide the industry as a whole about where they ought to move forward to meet industry standards. This took a huge intellectual effort for ISO to come up with, and it's presented in a way that's very easy to understand, and then start to categorize your operating and maintenance issues in the same way so that it can be used in valuing your assets in a standardized fashion, and as well as just doing your O&M correctly and then improving your processes as you go along. So this is an example of the work and the benefits of putting together common terms on the taxonomy and how it's being used in the field. I hope everyone can see that this improves bankability, your insurance approvals, how you can compare assets across portfolios, and have better data analysis across diverse data sources. So this standardizations create the semantics that we need to be able to move forward into the next era of how data processing is going to be done. So I am so excited about this. The next thing I want to talk about is electrical TS, which is our time series data and how this works with our core capacities. So this gives context-rich time series data. So let me just show you for a second what that actually means. Whoops, I am going to open this up really quickly, and I'll show you how that's done really quickly because I hadn't pulled up electrical time series. But I do think that knowing what the context, what it means to be context rich is helpful. So when you're looking at an electrical time series, we give you scope so that you can say what this is actually applying to. Is it a specific device? Or are you reporting the energy for an entire site or just one PV system or a portfolio? And you can put that in as big or as small as it needs to go, all the way down to the specific location with this latitude and longitude. So we give you context about that. When you're looking at the energy, almost always you're going to see line frequency as part of a title inside of a spreadsheet. And instead, we've pulled that out and made it explicit so that you can report your time series data with all of the data that you need to actually know what's going on, so that you can collect your data once, but then you can reuse it for the many, many different purposes it's going to have over and over again, because it will be fully defined in terms of what this time series data is representing and how you can use it and apply it and compare it properly. So we went through and defined exactly which metadata, which this data you needed around the data in order to accurately describe how this is working. So power, for instance, the power factor time series only needs 2 of these elements, but current needs all 4. And this is the work that we did as we were going through this. And temperature type. This absolutely matters in determining what temperature you're getting with your time series data. So the electrical time series gives you an object to organize all of your data around your electrical system so that you can present it together as a whole and be complete and clear and use it ongoing in the future with full confidence. We also opened up our first blog and got that going. Let me just show you for a second. So shout out to 3E and Justin Murch for doing this. And he put together our electrical time series blog, and it talks about what this is exactly and why you want to utilize this information with examples about how what value and input the fully defined data really looks like. So it is, we're putting in the structure so that people can adopt it much more quickly. And the other shout out I want to make on the electrical TS is to AJ Rossman at Smart Resource Labs, because he really kicked off this use case and then challenged us to find the correct information as we were going through and looking at the different sites that he was servicing. So it was an excellent collaboration. Okay, last but not least, I really wanted to talk about the product registry, and we are very excited that we have been able to fully describe the domestic content. So, and by fully describe, what I mean is that this is what you need to know that your source countries are going to, your products, the products you're purchasing are going to comply or not with domestic content rules, and then the FEOC rules that are the prohibited foreign entity rules defined in currently the IRS code that came out of the big bill. So these rules that manufacturers are going to be able to communicate clearly to buyers and insurers and people doing due diligence, I think is going to be a game changer in 2026, as every financing entity I am aware of needs to know this information and validate its accuracy before issuing financing. I read something this morning that said that they only knew of one financier who was moving forward without the clarity on the FIAC rules, because they need to know what the rules are going to be exactly and how that's going to work. We're capturing the data, so the exact cost percentage and exactly how that ownership is decided will be on the manufacturers to say. But then once they say that, you can move forward and make your purchasing decisions and financing decisions accordingly. So this is going to be a big friction remover for the entire industry. I'm super proud of this because it's very elegant as a solution in terms of just getting the outputs that we need to solve the problem without all of the inputs that go into it, which are still being discussed. But if we just record the outputs at the end, we can comply. So that took a little brain power to figure out, but we did it. So the next thing I want to talk about is how we're going to move this work forward and better and bigger in 2026. And it has everything to do with the Orange Button Alliance membership. So we have opened up the membership program. The people participating in the membership program have this network effect where everybody wins. The more that we can do, the more we're accelerating the benefits for all of us. And we have this alternative, particularly when thinking about the product registry or other common data sets and the common tools, is that we can try to build it internally over and over and over again, which is essentially where we are now. Or we can adopt the Orange Button information infrastructure for a much smaller price and help each other to develop this with much greater visibility and therefore accuracy of the data. So we want ecosystem connectivity and we want clarity about standards and their compliance. So these are the Orange Button Alliance membership tiers and pricings. This is the membership program's announcement. We're going to have open access to people who are just exploring and looking at it on the website, similar to how you would with the AHJ registry. Active members can be smaller installers and consultants. Certification bodies would be UL, Sunspec, these kinds of groups. Collaborating or larger vendors, maybe early stage manufacturers, and then larger manufacturers, and then foundation members. So these are the enterprise global leaders, and we even have one for the global for $1 million annual fee, because we do have some contributors whose minimum check is $1 million. So this is done all in partnership with the Sunspec Alliance, and so members get a 20% discount up to $5,000 on their membership fee. So that can really help. This is what you get with the $20,000 a year and the value proposition for like manufacturers. So the main thing is that you get unlimited product listings, and that is a great way of getting advertising, but also to set up all of your products in the right way with the right certifications and stuff so that you can get validated and become bankable for the users, insurance companies, finance companies, installers, design companies. It comes with API usage calls per month. You can be on the advisory council. We'll have an analytics dashboard, support, and working group participation. So this is the sustaining members are the ones that we are looking to fill out the most, the fastest, so that we can get the product registry information up and up to date, particularly with the domestic content information, as soon as possible. And of course, when you apply the discount for existing Sunspec members, it's even more attractive. We looked at the different memberships and which memberships would have which value propositions. And then we did a little ROI scenario. And I actually think that these costs might be low, but even with these kind of costs, we end up with a very large ROI, and even in your first year. So all around, closing sales faster, getting financing done faster. So your membership creates our voice, and it really is like a co-op for solar data. So I like that storyline, that we're collecting our data cooperatively, and would love your feedback about what you think about that. Please keep in mind that the real competition as we go into this and we're sharing our data, which is meant to be out there for everybody. We are anticipating some people might have some competitive concerns, but our real competition is actually fossil fuels and getting that carbon out of our system so that we can have a climate that works for our children. Then removing this bureaucratic friction and the slow adoption curves. So the quicker that manufacturers can get onto the product registry, the quicker they're going to be able to have all the benefits of the standardized data and the feedback from the ecosystem. Sunspec, UL, Lumion, all of the contributors who are adding to the certification registry, the CEC, Pennsylvania Power and Light, all of this supplemental data about their products that just make it great. So the tide will rise and will raise all boats. So this is what you need to do to join. We'll get you onboarded, and then you'll start to see the ROI. You just email, at the moment, you should just email me at oballiance.org, and we'll get you started. I wanted to ask some questions before we go to the next thing. Do we have time for questions or anything that's coming up?
Yep, we've got plenty of time. Did you want to go through the questions from the chat right now?
Yep, that would be great.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much, Jan. That was a really great intro to the challenge that Orange Button is seeking to answer, the solutions, and the path forward for progressing this work. I want to just offer one comment, so I head off on one question I anticipate is, why is there a separate organization and a separate membership? And the reason for this is, the Sunspec Alliance is a nonprofit trade alliance, 501c6. So it's non-tax deductible. And the work required to get the Orange Button work and use cases off the ground necessitated being able to hire software developers and set up more infrastructures with APIs and stuff like that. So it required a greater degree of funding. And by setting this up as a 501c3 nonprofit, a charity, they can take in greater amounts of funding and be tax deductible. As a trade alliance, 501c6, what Sunspec is, non-tax deductible. You can't easily take in large sums of money in order to hire the necessary labor force and set up the required infrastructure. So we're working hand in hand. Like Jan mentioned, Sunspec Alliance members will be able to obtain a discount to participate and benefit and contribute to this work.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. So we do have some questions here in the chat. I will go I guess I'm just going to go from the top down, starting with what James Ornstein was asking about blockchain technology, how it relates and how it's being used in relation to Orange Button.
So Orange Button has got a couple different ways that we're thinking about blockchain technology. The first one is that if you use the technology to describe the data that you're storing in a blockchain system, then it will be robust enough to stand the test of time and actually be, worthy of getting locked down into the blockchain. So I think that that is an excellent, common structure of how that data, and then the proper definitions with the units and the timeframes is actually a great enabler of blockchain applications. Orange Button Alliance is also looking at doing some tokens and having some Orange Button tokens for people who are contributing in the working groups and make other contributions, that they'll have tokens that can go to support training, getting free support and other elements like that in the system. So we've got a scenario where we're going to be using exchanging kind of our volunteered time for some Orange Button Alliance services, and we also think that it's creating the structure that's you need underlying that. Does that answer your question, James?
And you can unmute yourself if you want, James.
Yes.
Oh, he responded yes. Perfect.
Yep.
All
We're
right.
on the same page. Yep.
All right. Next question from Michael Cowan. What processes and procedures are used in Australia to get to 4K system cost? How similar is Orange Button?
So I am not familiar with all of the processes that they're using, but they have two significant differences. And the first one is that the permitting process is a standardized form that takes about an hour, and it's the same across the entire country. So that really helps. Also, the interconnection rules are substantially different. And I do believe Sunspec has been working with Australia in setting these up so that their utilities' approach to interconnection is that they are asserting that they have the right to curtail anything that's going to damage the grid, but otherwise, connect as much as you want, use whatever you want for that you're generating yourself. So they've got kind of a different approach to it altogether. And Tom Tansey might be able to speak more to that, but essentially that eliminates the interconnection queue kind of conundrums is by thinking about that differently. And I do think that they've had some challenges with some product interconnectivity at device-to-device communications that they are working out for the entire world in order to make that curtailment on demand a reality.
Yeah,
Tom,
Jen,
did I get that right?
Jen, I will be happy to chime in. I think that you described the situation pretty well about their policies on interconnection as being a key driver. I would also add that as a nation, they are very focused in on standardization with regard to these processes. So they recognize that they have had a significant vulnerability with their ability to produce power, and made the choice to bring on a lot of solar very quickly. And so they went to great lengths to standardize these processes and have them based on data. And so what Orange Button represents in some ways is putting that whole program on steroids to provide an abundance of data to allow other jurisdictions to adopt a similar behavior and do it in a fully informed way.
Yep, exactly. So this foundation is exactly the foundation that we need to do to get there. And Australia's actually adopted elements of this already to help support that.
Great. Next, we have a question from Bill Rubin. He asked, for U.S. residential market, do you have a list regarding status of deployment of these systems on a state-by-state basis, including number of solar installers using the system?
NREL does have exactly that data, and it is broken down. Because they're issuing the permits, they know the installers that are on the Solar App system. So NREL and the Solar App Foundation have those specific data. I talked with Katie at NREL to get my most recent updates of that data. But if you just go to Solar App Foundation .org, I believe, they will be able to break that all down.
Great. Okay. Next, we have a question from Limin Wang asking which level of membership is required to access Orange Button.
So the accessing of Orange Button is in the open access. So you can look at the taxonomy, you can manually go through and look at the product registry just for free. If you're going to contribute anything or suggest any data changes, you do need an account, but it will be free for you to do that. And let me show you quickly what the product registry MVP looks like. Here we go. And this link is in the deck. But you can come in and look at the details on the products that are here. Here's an example of a detail that it works, and then you have multiple inputs and outputs and MPPTs. And you can come in and explore all of this as you would like to see what this data is. So you can look at this level of data for free. Then with API access, then you need to start getting a paid account. But you can look online for free, and also the Orange Button editor is open and available for free so that you can look through whatever is of interest to you. And literally this is on the internet, on the web. So you can see all of this definition of the data right now. And it's got a great search functionality up here so that you can find whatever it is that you might be interested in. You can just find it right in here. And, you know, we've got some very specific information, but you can check that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. So the Orange Button editor, the taxonomy, the AHJ registry, the product registry, there are free public web portals that you can access it. It's when you want to obtain API access or contribute code or edit data, that's when membership is required essentially, right?
Essentially, yep.
Yeah.
So when you're ready to connect and make it automated part of your business, that's when you need a membership. But when you're just looking it out and you're exploring or you're just designing your system, all of this is available right now. So no limits.
Yeah. Great. Next, Amit asks, if we want to refer to context of Orange Button schemas, are there JSON and vocab files available with dedicated URI?
I think I got that question answered in the chat, but go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Yes. So if it's answered in the chat, that's great. We have a GitHub that we've got access to everything. And in terms of, yeah, so all of that information that you need is on GitHub.
Awesome.
I also pasted the link to the master file, the JSON file that has all the taxonomy.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay, and I'm just seeing if after that last question, it's kind of just discussion about all the responses. So, are there any other questions or discussion? You can unmute yourself to ask a question or enter it in the chat at this time.
Jen, I pasted a comment here on the chat here, but it'd be great if you can comment on the timings when the group meets so that others can join and collaborate. And also the Slack group as well, which I pasted.
Yes, you can totally join the Slack group, and we meet on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So, which I believe is 2 o'clock Eastern time. So that, and we meet every Tuesday, every week at 11 o'clock. So if you email me, I will connect you up with the group and you can join the working group and listen in.
Well, Jan, in addition, of course, we'll provide you with the names of people so that if folks are interested, you'll be invited to participate.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Jan, I have a question for you. So what are the current topics that the Orange Button Working Group is most focused on right now?
we are mostly focused on everything around product right now. So we did just finish, literally yesterday, the release of the domestic content FEOC rules in source countries. And the next piece that we're working on is around the recycling for the PV TAC for recycling modules. And the IEEE is working with the PV TAC, which had a grant from the Department of Energy to define the terms and the questions needed to support recycling and reuse of modules. So we've got full life cycle planning available, and we are working on adding in and considering how to best do that in those use cases. Likely the Orange Button Alliance will help with the technical work that is required for that grant, as the product registry is part of that output. So First Solar has been a major contributor to the, module recycling planning, as one would expect. And we're expecting that they're going to be early adopters in getting their information up so that we'll have the full life cycle information available. And they're setting themselves up to be first movers in that arena. So it's very exciting. So right now it's very much focused around the product registry.
Excellent.
Great. Well, any final questions or comments here? Jan, would you go to the slide for the next meeting? Yeah. So to wrap up, well, let me just first reflect. I mean, thanks so much, Jan, for leading the push on this Orange Button initiative. It's another exciting initiative that's really helping to continue to accelerate and help the DER industry grow. That, as you pointed out with the stakeholders slide, benefits everybody. So really excited about this initiative, and grateful for all the hard work that you and everybody else is putting into it. And so finally, like I said, to wrap up, to conclude this 6-part webinar series that we've been running for the past couple months, Sunspec will be hosting its virtual annual member meeting on December 17th. It'll be a 3-hour session. We'll have some networking time for everybody to get a chance to speak with each other and get all the updates on all the various activities going on in the Sunspec Alliance, both in the past year and coming up in 2026 as well. So you'll receive because you joined this webinar series, you'll receive the calendar invite and meeting coordinates for this virtual annual member meeting coming up on December 17th. So with that, thank you all so much for your time. Thanks again, Jan. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in a couple weeks at the annual member meeting.
Thank you, everyone. And a quick additional shout out to Cliff Hansen. He has been essential and stalwart in helping us move this forward and bringing the subject matter expertise desperately needed to make Orange Button really work.
And I see Cliff here, so thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you. So long. Until next time.
Bye.